660 AM. WNJC, Washington Township, Philadelphia. Philadelphia's Renaissance radio station. Brought to you from Forsyth Broadcasting. Or listen to us at WNJCradio.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hello, I'm Reverend Carl Kelly, and I head up the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Indiana. President Obama's attacks on the Constitution continues to be aided and abetted by one of his trusted allies in Congress, ultra-liberal Democrat Andre Caution of Indianapolis, nationally known for his infamous racial rants against the Tea Party. I want to tell you about J.D. Manier. J.D. will be a representative for the people of the 7th District. J.D. Manier is a pro-growth Reagan conservative and is co-host of the conservative Commandos Radio show. He is asking you to join his army of supporters in order to defeat Carson and go to Washington to demand special prosecutors for Benghazi, the IRS, and other scandals. J.D. is interested in what's good for the people of the 7th District, not Nancy Pelosi. He will promote strong economic growth and jobs by getting the government off the backs of the people, voting for tax cuts and slashing regulations. Help elect a pro-life defender of freedom who will strongly support Israel, vote to cut wasteful spending, and battle to repeal Obama's socialist agenda. Log on to ManierForCongress.com and donate today. That's MINIEAR for Congress.com. Paid for and authorized by the J.D. Manier for Congress Committee.
I'm J.D. Manier, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Indiana District 7, and I approve of this message.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. And happy Easter to all of you out there. And we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet via our new internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And joining me today on this Good Friday afternoon is my very good friend, Sharon Angle. Sharon, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you, Rick. Happy Easter to you, and happy Easter to all of our audience. I'm glad we're not shying away from the Easter holidays and making them secular. We just got through with our spring break, and of course it doesn't include Easter. When I was a kid, we started with the Holy Week and ended with the Easter, and it was a great and grand celebration, and now we've relegated it to just another day.
Indeed, we have. In fact, one of our guests is going to be talking about how the liberals like ABC, CBS, NBC are carrying out a war on Easter. Sharon, you know, we're used to hearing about the war on Christmas, but now we're dealing with how these seculars, how the liberal media now have a war on Easter, and I guess we could say, and all of us Christians.
And perhaps they're right to war against Easter. After all, isn't it the linchpin of Christianity? Mm-hmm. If Christ is not resurrected, then he's just another man. And truly, isn't that what it's all about? When you start talking about why we worship a living God, it's because death could not hold him. And so if you have a problem with God, wouldn't it make sense to attack God right where the whole issue really stands, and that is he living or is he dead? And of course, if you've seen that movie, God is Not Dead, you're more convinced than ever that he's a living God, and that's why we celebrate Easter, is because he's alive.
Indeed, indeed. Sharon, have you ever been to the Holy Land?
I have. I've been twice, and I'd go again right now. It's a wonderful place to go and visit. In fact, I think it might even be a wonderful place to live, walking where Jesus walked, and truly getting an understanding of the land and why he loved the land. I know that when we were in the bus, we got to stop overlooking Jerusalem, and you can't help but look out over the city and say, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I would have gathered you as a hen gathers her chicks, but you would not." And it's just the broken heart of the Savior, how many he wants to save and how many will not.
Beautiful, Sharon. Beautiful. Mary and I were there a few years ago, and it was a very impactful trip. And what it did for me, Sharon, is it took the Bible the story of Jesus and put it to a whole new realm for me. It no longer was like a fable, but it was real. It became a piece of our history for me. And it was very impactful. That, and also Sharon Engel visiting the Shroud of Turin in Turin, Italy. The Shroud of Turin is reputed to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, on which is left an image. And what is interesting about this image, Sharon, it is an image of a man who was crucified, who was scourged, and the stain on this cloth, no one can figure out what made this stain. It's not ink, it's not dye, it's not paint, it's not even blood. But the stain on this cloth was created by nothing mankind knows of today. And in my opinion, it is the result of the greatest paranormal event of all time, and that's the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
I couldn't agree more with you, Rick Trader. I've read the story of the Shroud, and as you say, it defies explanation except that supernatural resurrection from the dead that happened on Easter Sunday. And you're not alone, Rick Trader. I've talked to so many other people who have visited the land. Of course, that's what they call Israel, and Israel is Haaretz, the land. Mm-hmm. And when you do, you step foot and you realize that somehow you've entered into a place where you can feel the presence of God. You can feel the history of that land, and you can feel the places where your Savior walked. It's an amazing place mm-hmm. to be, and I've heard that from so many people mm-hmm. when they've stepped foot off that airplane, how truly amazing it is just mm-hmm. to be in the land.
Indeed, Sharon. You know, I am a very flawed man. I don't do all the right things that I should do. I don't go to church every Sunday, but being in the Holy Land, I got that feeling that I was actually walking in the footsteps of Jesus. Especially on two occasions that, you know, we saw all the wonderful sights, the Church of the Nativity, the Sermon on the Mount, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and our group had an occasion to have a Mass on the Sea of Galilee. And that was an experience that I will never forget. To have a Mass on a boat on the Sea of Galilee, around which Jesus preached and lived, and it was a wonderful experience. That, and also that the wife and I had our wedding vows renewed in Cana, right above the ruins where Jesus celebrated the famous wedding at Cana. And those two experiences to me were just absolutely, for some reason, those two experiences to me are things I will never forget. Seeing the place where Jesus Christ was born, I'll never forget that either, or the place that he died, I'll never forget. But for some reason, those two events really struck home with me. As I said, it took the story of a living Jesus Christ and made it real to me. It took the story of a crucified Christ and it made it real to me. And the story of a resurrected Jesus Christ, it made it real to me.
And you have just outlined the center of our faith, Rick Trader, and that is, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. We all know that we are flawed mm-hmm. and that we are needy. We mm-hmm. need a Savior, someone who can forgive sin. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's probably the thing about my trips that has really stayed with me. I've been baptized mm-hmm. in the Jordan River.
Wow.
Once at the traditional site where everyone goes and gets baptized. They kind of have it all set up there on the Jordan River, and you walk in and you actually do the Hebrew mikvah, which is everyone watches from the shore while you make that testament of buried with Jesus and risen again to new life. And, of course, that's the whole symbolism of baptism. But the other baptism was in the Jordan River on the Jordan side, where they believed was truly the true site where John the Baptist was baptizing there, just outside of Jericho. And that was, again, a great experience. And I guess it's that living out that birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus through that symbolism. And we only can get that, I think, through just experiencing Jesus Christ for ourselves. And so I guess we're right to that place where our listeners, if you don't know Jesus, you need to get acquainted with him, and maybe you need to go to the Holy Land as well and get better acquainted.
All right. And with that, Sharon, once again, we want to wish all our listeners a happy Easter. We're going to take a break right now, and we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, like we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m., and our internet broadcast partners, patriotsride.org, vigilantlibertyradio.us, and cprworldwidemedia.com. And don't forget, you can listen to our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Using your cell phone at no extra charge. Use your cell phone minutes. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, fellow patriots. Welcome back once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show on this Easter weekend. And a couple of program notes. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, please log on to patriotsride.org. That's patriotsride.org. And for rebroadcast of yesterday's show at 5 p.m. when we end our live broadcast, please log on to cprworldwidemedia.com. That's cprworldwidemedia.com. And Monday afternoon, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, you can find that at vigilantlibertyradio.us. Don't forget to click on those Listen Live links. And now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos radio show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Call using your cell phone. There's no extra cost for this phone, and this way you can use your mobile minutes. You could call that number using any kind of telephone. And please check out our websites, conservativecommandosradioshow.com and ccrshow.com. Two different websites, different information on each one of them. And joining me today as my co-host, as she usually does on Thursday, but very special today, this Good Friday, is my very good friend Sharon Engel. And Sharon, before we go any further, why don't we tell our listeners who our guests are for today?
Well, I'd love to do that. Coming right up after, at the half hour, we're going to have Dan Gaynor with Media Research Center, and he's going to be talking about what you and I were just talking about in the first 10 minutes of the show, which is secularizing Easter and how the media is part of that effort to make sure that Easter really isn't a holiday that's celebrated in America, because after all, we're not a Christian nation, Rick Trader.
That's what Barack Obama tells us.
That's what we're being told all the time. It's a fascinating situation, isn't it, when we look at our Constitution and see the earmarks of Christianity throughout, and when we look at the lives of our founders and understand that they also believed that there was a resurrected Savior. So it's an interesting dilemma that they're having to rewrite history in order to write Easter out.
Right, and you know what, Sharon, you talk about that, and the left, the seculars, say that, oh, well, they're going by a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote and years after the Constitution was ratified, separating church and state. They're using that as their proof. However, they don't want to go near the fact that every meeting our founding fathers met at, they always started with the prayer. They ignore that fact, don't they, Sharon Engel?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Well, Sharon, at 4 o'clock, or better still, 4:05, we're going to be speaking with Joseph Bast. He's the president of the Heartland Institute. And they've just released a study on global warming. In fact, there's been a couple of major studies come out recently about global warming, one by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and you can imagine what they're saying. But there's another study out by the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change. It's an international network of some 50 independent scientists from 15 countries, and many of them distinguished with no financial stake in the debate. So we're going to be speaking with Joseph Bast on that subject today.
Our final guest this afternoon is Jeff Lawrence. He's with Nevada Policy Research Institute, and he's going to be talking about the federal lands versus state lands. It's an interesting subject considering what's been happening in Nevada, and I think we're on the map one more time. Of course, Harry Reid always keeps Nevada in the forefront. People cannot seem to get away from Harry Reid, and perhaps Harry Reid is at the bottom of what's going on with Cliven Bundy story that we've been watching on Fox News, and people are probably wondering what the real story is. So we're going to be talking to Jeff Lawrence and see if we can't sift through truth from rumor, from urban legend to whatever's going on. We know that there is something going on here, and certainly Harry Reid's all over this one.
Mm-hmm. You know, Sharon, earlier today, it wouldn't surprise our audience to know that you and I speak about what we're going to talk about on the show. I mean, this is hardly ad lib. And you had some very interesting comments to me today on the phone about Harry Reid and the what do you call it, the desert tourist? Tourist?
Well, the whole issue of public lands is probably foreign to most folks that live in the East, because when the East was settled, actually anything east of the Mississippi just about was settled, the lands were homesteaded, the lands were given into private ownership, some state ownership, but nothing that the federal government has any hand on, maybe a few national parks, but it's basically within the state's purview or governmenting body. And in the West, we have a whole different situation, because these lands all came into territories about the same time, and they have specific laws that brought us in as states. We've talked a little bit about Nevada, and we came in as a state in 1864 without the population required, because the Union needed the silver on their side to support the Civil War. But at that point, they also divided the lands up, and so much of Nevada is desert, unirrigable. That means you can't grow a crop on it. There's really very minimal usage. It's very poor land as far as growing cattle or anything else. And so the people were kind of hesitant to go in there and homestead. In fact, some that did couldn't prove up on it. And a lot of that then just by default went into public lands, which is, it just means that everybody can use it. And through this multiple use, we had all kinds of things happening where people started to fight over it. Well, my use is better than your use, or I was here first, or whatever the case may be. And so they decided that the federal government should then manage these publicly held lands so that there wouldn't be range wars between the sheepmen who came in over the country and grazed it until there wasn't a blade of grass left, and the cattlemen living, oh my God, I can't graze my cattle out there. And so that was what really started those wars. So the Taylor Grazing Act came in just around the time of the Depression, and that's basically what's been governing the land for those many years since, which keeps everybody from fighting. And it says if you want to graze on the public land, you need to pay a little bit of money, so we know that you're current with your desire to put your cattle out there. And what we have here now is in 1993, a cattleman decided he didn't want to pay those fees anymore because he didn't think that the federal government should be involved with this grazing activity, that this should be a state land situation. And instead of going through and changing the law, he just ignored the law. Mm-hmm. And so now what we have here is the federal government saying, well, the guy has not paid his fees, so he needs to move his cattle off. Mm-hmm. And, of course, that's they say he's broken the law, he needs to move the cattle off. He says, I didn't break the law is no good. Mm-hmm. But
hey, Sharon,
the interesting part is we're 20 years into this.
Right, Sharon, I hate to break your story, but guess what? We're up against a break. Time flies when you're...
We'll pick this up with Jeff.
You're right. Time flies when we're having fun. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, as we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPR Worldwide Media, Patriots Right, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And don't forget, now you can listen to our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. There is no extra cost for the call, so go to it, guys. Be right back.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
Hello, I'm Reverend Carl Kelly, and I head up the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Indiana. President Obama's attacks on the Constitution continues to be aided and abetted by one of his trusted allies in Congress, ultra-liberal Democrat Andre Carson of Indianapolis, nationally known for his infamous racial rants against the Tea Party. I want to tell you about J.D. Manier. J.D. will be a representative for the people of the 7th District. J.D. Manier is a pro-growth Reagan conservative and is co-host of the conservative Commandos Radio show. He is asking you to join his army of supporters in order to defeat Carson and go to Washington to demand special prosecutors for Benghazi, the IRS, and other scandals. J.D. is interested in what's good for the people of the 7th District, not Nancy Pelosi. He will promote strong economic growth and jobs by getting the government off the backs of the people, voting for tax cuts and slashing regulations. Help elect a pro-life defender of freedom who will strongly support Israel, vote to cut wasteful spending, and battle to repeal Obama's socialist agenda. Log on to ManierForCongress.com and donate today. That's MINIEAR for Congress.com. Paid for and authorized by the J.D. Manier for Congress Committee.
I'm J.D. Manier, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Indiana District 7, and I approve of this message.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
As you know, we do come to you Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. from our flagship station, WNJC 1360 in Philly. But you can also hear rebroadcast at 10:10 this evening at patriotsride.org. That's patriotsride.org. And you can also hear a rebroadcast of yesterday's show when we go off the air at 5 p.m. at cprworldwidemedia.com. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show on Monday afternoon, place for that is at vigilantlibertyradio.us. And now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos radio show anytime, day or night, from your phone. Just call 832-999-1199. You could use your cell phone. There's no additional charge for this call. And so just one more way you can tune us in. But with that, Sharon Engel, we do have our first guest with us today. Please make the introduction.
Yes, it is my privilege to introduce Dan Gaynor, who's the Vice President for Business and Culture of the Media Research Center. Dan is a veteran editor with more than 2 decades experience in print and online media. Dan regularly appears on the Fox Business Network. Welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show, Dan Gaynor.
It's a pleasure to be back, and how are you both? And I hope you're prepared for a wonderfully happy Easter with your family.
Thank you so much. We're going to start calling that Happy Resurrection Day after reading this article by Katie Yoder that says that it's the attack of the peeps next secularized Easter 9 out of 10 times. Now, Katie works with your organization, and we have asked John to help us kind of go through her article and really understand what the media is doing to this wonderful Resurrection Day.
Of their war on Christmas. But unlike the war on Christmas, which, I mean, the war on Christmas is very overt. I mean, there's a lot of people on the left that truly hate Christmas. But because they're so ignorant of Christianity, they don't understand that Easter is actually the big holiday. That's the resurrection of Christ, and so that is the big date for Christians. But the way the media have handled it is instead of going outright attack, they simply ignore that it's a religious holiday. So we looked at the last 3 years, the couple weeks leading up to Easter in each one of those years, how ABC, CBS, and NBC covered it. And we looked at literally every mention in those 2 weeks. Ended up being, like 550 different mentions. And, of course, overwhelmingly, the mentions they have are secular. So they're happy to talk about peeps, the marshmallow peeps. Oh, well, they're really important. We can't have Easter without peeps. And chocolate and fashion and drinking and all sorts of things. But if you want to know really, just kind of get down to it, there's a great little exchange here that happened between Kathy Lee Gifford and a woman who is the Better Homes and Garden editor. And so this woman, Elaine Griffin, from Better Home and Gardens, said, Easter is about 2 things, family and fun. Well, okay, besides the fact she's wildly wrong, what's worse is how Kathy Lee Gifford responded. And she said, well, it's also about something else, but we won't get into that. And that's actually the essence of everything that they did, is we won't get into that. We're happy to talk about the superfluous stuff involving the holiday, but we won't actually tell you it's a religious holiday, even down to the point when they did mention it was usually buried among secular references.
So this whole idea of the peeps is these little chickens, these little...
Yeah, the little marshmallow, chickens out there. I think they come now, and you can get the bunny form too. And I mean, I like peeps maybe more than the next person. They've always been part of my holiday since I was a kid. But they're just little bits of marshmallow and candy, not the reason for the holiday. And that's what journalists successfully have done. They have twisted the most important holiday for a couple billion people into a holiday involving marshmallow.
marshmallows. It's incredible. As you said, this is the most important holiday to Christians, and I'm just amazed. I guess I'm amazed by the numbers. That 500 times they mention it, only 56 times do they reference it as a religious holiday. This is more than just rewriting history, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's journalists edit, and they edit out what they don't consider important, and they don't consider Christianity important. Like, I can tell you, I spent a couple decades in journalism, and that means I worked in newsrooms for weekly newspapers, newsrooms for daily newspapers, and newsrooms for online publications. And universally, almost no one in any of those places attended church on a regular basis. You had almost no one willing to admit that they were an active Christian. And so what happens in these newsrooms, and particularly at the networks, they don't really even know anybody who's an active Christian. The concept is just foreign to them. So they're more than happy to remember every other group in the world. They'll celebrate Ramadan. Do you believe me? They'll get gay pride parades right, and they'll cover them to death. But when it comes to Christian faith that involves a couple billion people, and in our nation, something like 85% of the population, they don't cover it at all. And if you want a great example, according to studies, somewhere between 50 and 55% of Americans are sports fans. And somewhere between 80 and 85% are Christians. And even higher number if you're going by all faiths. Yet, every single day, I can pick up my newspaper, and there's a whole section devoted to sports. Once a week, because I get the Washington Post, once a week I get one page devoted to religion. And even that page is so wildly twisted, and it focuses almost exclusively on non-Christian subjects and the lefty version of Christianity and all, constant attacks on conservative Christians, that it's so non-representative of what goes on in the faith community around the country that it almost might as well not exist.
So I guess it begs the question then, why do we tolerate that? If 85% of this nation professes to be Christians, we watch these folks really, as you say, just secularize it, don't have a clue about it. Why do we tolerate that? What's your take on this? Why isn't there any pushback? Why do we have to depend on you as just immediate research to inform us and say, hey, look at what these guys are doing?
Part of it is everybody wants to live their lives, and you can only live your life, so focused on, I want to complain about this or complain about that. But also, most people are only exposed to a certain tiny bit of media, and so I'll watch Big Bang Theory, very popular show, but tends to be not pro-Christian. The one prominent Christian on the show, Sheldon's mother, they tend to kind of make sport of. And they kind of make sport of Christians when they bring her on. That's pretty much, and that's more benign than a lot of shows. If you watch Law and Order, or pretty much most drama shows, Christians are usually the villains. In Law and Order, if you saw somebody come on the show who is a devout Christian, you could pretty much guarantee that person's going to be a bad guy. So what happens is, I think we've just gotten immune to it. If you're a Christian in this country, let's do this comparison. If you're a liberal versus conservative in this country, you have a totally different experience with media. If you're a liberal, you can wake up in the morning, either pick up a newspaper or surf online or watch morning TV, go to work, maybe surf a little bit while you're at work, come home, watch the evening news, and then watch entertainment TV. And depending on what you've chosen, you can completely insulate yourself from conservative views just by watching mainstream media and reading the New York Times or watching regular entertainment. But if you're conservative, you pick up the morning paper, turn on TV online or on whatever. You're bombarded with liberal views, whether you watch entertainment or news. You turn on music. And even if you listen to country music, sometimes you get hit with that. The left so thoroughly dominates the media conversation in America. Yet, when you look at Gallup, conservatives outnumber liberals 2-1.
We're talking with Dan Gaynor from the Media Research Center here on Conservative Commandos Radio Show. Dan, can you stay with us through the break?
Yes, again.
We'll be right back after this break, speaking with Dan Gaynor from the Media Research Center about secularizing Easter and, probably more important, trying to secularize our nation and what we as Christians should do, especially at this season. We'll be talking with Dan Gaynor right after this break.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I... Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader. And as a reminder, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening, that's Eastern Time, please log on to patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m., when we end our live broadcast, if you would like to hear a repeat of yesterday's show, please log on to cprworldwidemedia.com. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show on Monday afternoon, place for that is at vigilantlibertyradio.us. And don't forget, you can listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show by dialing 832-999-1199. There's no extra cost for the call. Use your cell phone minutes there. And we're speaking today with a very good friend of our program, Dan Gaynor from the Media Research Center. And Dan, happy Easter to you, my friend.
Happy Easter to you as well.
Dan, I was listening to the conversation that you were having with Sharon. You were talking about the libs, and you said Christianity is not important. Dan Gaynor, I'll add on to that. Not only is Christianity not important to them, they're ashamed to discuss it. However, they always want to scourge it.
Well, and even more, it's not how they treat any other group in the country. I mean, if you look... There are liberals out for the Gay Pride Parade. If there's an event that, like the St. Patrick's Day Parade, where they don't want to turn into a Gay Pride Parade, there are liberals out for that. there are liberals out if you have any sort of minority group event. But they see Christians as the man. Christians are the dominant culture. So they attack them like David going against Goliath.
Well, Dan, maybe, and this might be a little controversial, especially on a holiday like today, but maybe Christians need to be more militant. After all, it's certainly working for the Muslims.
Well, I mean, I think more militant in expressing their views, more militant in complaining about networks. I mean, you know what's coming on this Sunday?
I would hope the King of Kings.
Well, I don't know if that is, but I can tell you what is. WGN is launching its brand new show, Salem, about the Salem witch trials, filled with sex, violence, and occult.
Now, Dan, do you think that was planned?
Absolutely, I think that was planned. I think it was done because they are desperate to get attention, and they are hopeful that they'll be like, oh, see how edgy we are. You know, you're out celebrating, that Christian thing, but look, you can see sex in a cult. We're gonna have witchcraft right here because it's not even the actual Salem witch trials. It's not. It's a interpretation of it where the people running the witch trials are actually witches, which besides making no sense at all, which of course. Bad plot. And so gets positive reviews in the New York Times and elsewhere. They love the edgy. And if you watch this, what's really interesting about that is watch how stuff that happens in pay cable, HBO, Cinemax, etc., moves to free cable and then moves to broadcast. That's how all TV happens right now. So, Game of Thrones, you have some occult stuff. Oh, vampire shows. Oh, we have some occult stuff. Gradually move into to free cable, and then from there they jump to the broadcast network.
Dan, in your press release, you talk about the liberals at ABC, CBS, and NBC have been carrying out a war on Easter by attempting to trivialize our Christian holiday. Now, Dan Gaynor, which of these networks, in your opinion, is the worst violator of this?
Well, I'm going to pick NBC simply because it's got my most memorable item from the whole thing, and that's that Kathy Lee Gifford one.
Okay.
But it's, I mean, they're all bad. There were 500 secular times, only 56 religious times. None of them are covering Christianity the way they cover any other event. I mean, a couple billion people. There's more than 1.2 billion Catholics in the world. You throw in Protestants around the world, and you've got something that's wildly significant. And in America, the 80 to 85% who are Christian, this is the holiday. It's not Christmas. The only reason Christmas is viewed as the holiday is because the secular media turned it into a big thing with Santa Claus and gift giving. But the big holiday for Christians is the celebration of the resurrection of Christ.
Dan Gaynor, Earth Day is coming. Will the networks be celebrating Earth Day?
Speaking of NBC, I can almost guarantee, because they do crazy stuff every year on NBC. One year, a couple of years ago, they turned out the lights on their set. Oh, it's Earth Day. We got to save energy. Oh, you're morons. Not one of the anchors or major celebs on any of these networks lives a carbon neutral life. You take a look at your own carbon footprint, which the media always want to talk about. Oh, you've got this massive carbon footprint. I don't fly around very often. I drive some. I live in a house. They drive around. They fly around. They are like NBC a few years ago when they had the Olympics in China. NBC had air conditioners on, outdoors, to keep their people cool because they wanted the set to look nice. Hey, pretty sure that air conditioner is not cooling a lot, and you're using tons of energy just to keep your guy from sweating a little bit. They're hypocrites.
We're supporting all of this, aren't we? Aren't we really, Dan Gaynor? Aren't we as Christians somehow complicit in this? What can we do to get out of the idea that we're going along with this, even if it's just merely by our silence? What can we do?
Well, I mean, the first thing you can do is speak up. And I mean that by speaking up, that doesn't, you guys have a platform, but everybody listening doesn't. But they all have Facebook. They all have Twitter. When you don't like something, so Sunday comes around, when Salem comes on, go on television, tweet at your local TV station that's broadcasting this and say, by the way, you broadcast Salem, or tweet at the advertisers, whoever advertising on the show. Say, you're advertising for Salem. Why? On Easter Sunday. So whatever product you sell, I'm not going to buy it anymore. And stick to it, no matter how much you like that product. That the way to hit the left every single time is you hit them in the purse, hit them in the wallet, hit them places where no matter how dogmatic they are, they have to listen. One of the great examples I've seen of Christians standing up was, remember when the Lord of the Rings movies came out, and they were incredibly successful. And after that, we got The Lion and the Witch and the Wardrobe, the Narnia movies. First Narnia movie was incredibly successful. Now, both of those series are very Christian in a lot of ways. Both of the authors were very Christian. They were friends of each other. But particularly The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a very famous Christian allegory. So Hollywood's response to this trend of, oh my gosh, these incredibly supportive pro-Christian movies was what? What movie series did they decide to go ahead with? The Golden Compass. Golden Compass, based on the Dark Materials books, is the idea of people going out and killing God. The whole series is an anti-Catholic diatribe.
Hey, Dan Gaynor, and on the converse, what I think we need to do is, just like Barack Obama says, punish our enemies and reward our friends. We also must support good television. Remember the Bible series that was out a year or so ago? What huge ratings that got. And, Dan, I've been watching a series that is on AMC the past two weekends called Turn, which is about America's first spy ring, which I think is an exceptional series, very well done. And I've been encouraging our listeners to watch that show. So,
and I would go one further. I think you're entirely right. One further, though, and it's not just Christian movies. It's just movies that have the right message. And along those lines, Phelan McAleer and Ann McEnany are trying to do a fundraising campaign for a movie about Kermit Gosnell. Now, I remember because you and I talked about Gosnell trial a couple times, I think, last year. And they're doing this by crowdfunding, and they're doing it on a website called Indiegogo. And if you can't find that, just search for Gosnell movie. And they've raised close to half of what they need.
Right.
They still got a lot of time to do it. But
Dan, let me throw this. Do you know any of the producers?
Phelan McAleer and Ann McEnany.
Bring them on our show.
I will forward an email.
All right. Hey, Dan, we got to go real shortly in about 30 seconds. But before we do, please give out the website for the Media Research Center and where people can read Katie Yoder's article.
You can find it either on our very popular blog, newsbusters.org, or our website, mrc.org. And again, happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter, Dan Gaynor. And blessed to you and your family.
Thank you.
Take care. God bless. And with that, we're going to go to commercial in your Conservative Commandos radio show. Coming to you from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, as we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern. But now you can listen to rebroadcast on CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and you can listen to our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. No additional cost for that call. Use your cell phone minutes. It's free. Don't go away. Sharon and I will be right back with Joseph Bast from the Heartland Foundation.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
Hello, I'm Reverend Carl Kelly, and I head up the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Indiana. President Obama's attacks on the Constitution continues to be aided and abetted by one of his trusted allies in Congress, ultra-liberal Democrat Andre Carson of Indianapolis, nationally known for his infamous racial rants against the Tea Party. I want to tell you about J.D. Manier. J.D. will be a representative for the people of the 7th District. J.D. Manier is a pro-growth Reagan conservative and is co-host of the conservative Commandos Radio show. He is asking you to join his army of supporters in order to defeat Carson and go to Washington to demand special prosecutors for Benghazi, the IRS, and other scandals. J.D. is interested in what's good for the people of the 7th District, not Nancy Pelosi. He will promote strong economic growth and jobs by getting the government off the backs of the people, voting for tax cuts and slashing regulations. Help elect a pro-life defender of freedom who will strongly support Israel, vote to cut wasteful spending, and battle to repeal Obama's socialist agenda. Log on to ManierForCongress.com and donate today. That's MINIEAR for Congress.com. Paid for and authorized by the J.D. Manier for Congress Committee.
I'm J.D. Manier, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Indiana District 7, and I approve of this message.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Angle and Rick Trader coming to you from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, log on to patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m., when we end our live broadcast, if you would like to hear a repeat of yesterday's show, place for that is cprworldwidemedia.com. And you can hear a rebroadcast of today's show on Monday afternoon at vigilantlibertyradio.us. And don't forget, now you can hear the Conservative Commandos radio show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. And our next guest is Mr. Joseph Bast. He's the president of the Heartland Institute. He also has co-authored or edited over 21 books, including Eco-Insanity, A Common Sense Guide to Environmentalism, the Climate Change Reconsidered series, and the Patriots Toolbox. He is the founding publisher of 5 monthly public policy newspapers sent to the nation's national, state, and local elected officials, including Environment and Climate News. His writings have appeared in many publications, including the Wall Street Journal, Investors Business Daily, the Cato Journal, Washington Post, and USA Today. Joe, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Great to have you with us. You know, Joe, got to be honest with you, last week we had a writer from CNSnews.com on our show, Penny Starr, who talked about your reports that come out. But I don't think this is a subject that we can talk about enough. And, Joe, according to the Heartland Institute, 2 major reports on global warming were released in 2013 and so far in 2014, one by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and one by the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change. Joe, tell us how these reports differ.
Yeah, well, they're tremendously different. To start with, they're written by 2 very different groups of individuals in 2 different organizations. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, is a government organization. It's made up of the nations of the world. Governments appoint the scientists who get to participate in the research effort, and governments get to edit and review and revise the publications before they're released. So it's really a report by governments for government to justify whatever the political agendas happen to be of those governments. Whereas the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change is a group of independent scientists from around the world. I think there's about 20 countries now represented by about 75 individual scientists. And these guys have no agenda, no axe to grind. Many of them are professor emeritus, which means they're not trying to get tenure by trying to continue to be published. And so they took a fresh look at the science, looked at the studies and the reports that the IPCC ignored or deliberately overlooked, and came up with dramatically different conclusions.
Joe, I think another difference between these 2 reports is the NIPC distinguished themselves because they have no financial stake in the debate, whereas that the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, I think they do have a big stake at this, Joe, and I'm going to tell you what my feelings are. You tell me where I'm wrong here. The United Nations today is a ring in the nose of the third world countries are pulling on that ring through the nose of the United Nations. Now, if I'm right, Joe, that this Kyoto Treaty that we've been hearing about for the past 15 years, there's provisions in that to make the developed nations like the United States pay tribute or money or taxes to the non-developed world that's leading the United Nations through the nose. Am I correct on this?
I think you are largely correct. I think the developed countries, the wealthy countries of the world, are way too eager to be led this way. So I don't think the developing countries need to pull very hard on that string in order to get the representatives of developed countries to follow along. I think all along this has been about economic redistribution, giving the United Nations more power to do what it wants. It's not really about science. If you look at the science, the scientific community was examining climate. They were very unsure about what impact human beings had, and most scientists were and still are very skeptical that we will ever be able to figure out how big an impact there is by carbon dioxide or by human activities. I mean, it's very small compared to natural variability, and the whole climate system seems to be chaotic, which means any change in one forcing or one feedback, it's very hard to predict what kind of impact that's going to have. So the politicians got into this area, even though the science wouldn't justify it, and for 20, 30 years now have been pushing to use this as an excuse to adopt a political agenda. Mm-hmm. That's the real shame of it. I think the science has been politicized. It's been shoved off to one side, and you've got guys like Al Gore and a whole list of politicians and pseudo-scientists at EPA and other government agencies that have been using this issue to advance their careers and oftentimes line their pockets without regard to what the true science is.
Joe, the NIPCC report, the new report consists of 2 volumes, each approximately 1,000 pages long. So, Joe, together, how about if you and I save our listeners a whole lot of reading and talk about some of the key points in this, okay? Number 1, there is no scientific consensus on the human role in climate change. Joe, I could have settled this a whole long time ago, and I'll tell you why. You know, Joe, I love history, and I love reading and watching about history and geology and different things. And again, Joe, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but over the last 100,000 years, there have been 4 major ice ages. The last one was only about 12,000 years ago. And at that time, there was a sheet of ice that covered North America all the way down to Princeton, New Jersey. In some places, this ice sheet was 2 miles thick. Now, Joe, if humans have any role in warming the planet today, please tell me what those people were driving 12,000 years ago and what were they using to heat their homes that melted all that ice?
No. So the guys...
I like to have a little fun.
The guys who believe that there's man-made global warming don't deny that there are also natural forcings and feedbacks that can drive the climate. So they admit that there were ice ages and warm periods before the human presence was here. Their argument is that the current climate is very sensitive to changes in carbon dioxide, and that because human beings are cranking out a lot of carbon dioxide, that has to have some sort of impact on climate, and it ought to be a warming to the overall climate. And our response to that is, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, and we are putting more of it in the atmosphere, and all else held constant, that would probably lead to maybe a 0.5 to a 1.5 degree warming over 100 years. Actually, it's more than 100 years, but we can say 100 years. And that much warming is so small compared to natural variability that we will never notice it. And finally, it won't have any negative impacts. And that's this latest study that we've done looks very closely at these impacts. And it says a little bit of warming and higher levels of carbon dioxide are a boom for plants and animals, even the oceans. Everybody benefits when the climate gets a little warmer and when carbon dioxide increases.
Well, Joe, we're going to jump ahead again, referring to the interview that we did last week with Penny Starr from CNS News. She was at your press conference last week, and Penny told us at that time that studies have been done about CO2, carbon dioxide. They've done studies where plants have gotten additional CO2, and there have been studies where plants were denied CO2, and the plants that were denied CO2 were puny weaklings. The ones that got extra CO2 did great. Am I right or wrong?
You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. One of the primary authors, the principal authors of the NIPSI reports, the most recent one on biological impacts, is Craig Idso. And Craig is one of the world's leading authorities on the effect of carbon dioxide on plants. And he has documented hundreds and hundreds of these studies. And they're all listed in this report. There's an appendix that lists hundreds of these studies. And over again, they show that if you increase the amount of carbon dioxide in the air, plants grow faster, bigger, they have more flowers, they have more leaves, their stems are thicker. If they produce fruits and vegetables, the fruit and vegetables are bigger. They even have more vitamins in them. So, I mean, it's just an astounding collection of study after study that shows the beneficial impacts of higher levels of carbon dioxide. And incredibly, the United Nations and the IPCC just ignores all that research. You can look through their reports, and they just pretend it doesn't even exist.
Well, Joe, once again, to me that sounds like a very good thing, because you hear all kinds of reports all the time of all the people that go to bed hungry.
It's absolutely good. In fact, there are estimates that the amount of carbon dioxide that we've added to the atmosphere in the 20th century has helped almost 1 billion people, feed themselves. 1 billion people, who would probably be starving to death today if it weren't for more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, are able to live. So,
hey, Joe, we're going to have to take a break. Can you hold through our break, please?
Sure.
All right. And we're speaking today with Joseph Bast. He's the president of the Heartland Institute here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. We're going to go to a break right now, but we're coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And don't forget, you can listen to our show anytime, day or night, from your telephone, cell phone, anything you can make a telephone call on by dialing 832-999-1199. Be right back.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today, the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. And we're speaking with Joseph Mast. He's the president of the Heartland Institute. And we're talking about a couple major reports on global warming that have been released. One by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and one by the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change. And seems like there are big differences between these two reports. Joe, thanks for holding through that break. We do appreciate your time, but we have to pay our bills.
Sure, understood.
Joe, question I should ask you in the very beginning. Tell us about the Heartland Institute. What's your missions?
Our mission is to discover, develop, and promote free market solutions to social and economic problems. So we're looking for ways to solve environmental problems, for example, or education problems, healthcare problems, without having to run to the government every time to come up with a solution. We've been doing this for about 30 years. We're based in Chicago. We have about 8,000 donors who fund our efforts. We're a nonprofit organization, of course, a 501c3, which means contributions are tax deductible, and we don't lobby. For more information about us, you can go to our website. It's at www.heartland.org, heartland.org.
All right. Joe, getting back to what the study has found, or some of the points, it's hard to go through all of them, considering the study was... Each study was 1,000 pages long. You know, Joe, there's a lot of people out there that are worrying about the polar bears because the ice is melting. What did the study find about this?
Yeah, well, you know, this is actually one of my pet issues because you'll remember seeing polar bears on Coca-Cola cans. Coca-Cola was doing a joint marketing thing with the Natural Resources Defense Council. Now, the Natural Resources Defense Council is a radical, left-wing environmental group that is sitting on almost $250 million worth of assets. It raises and spends 20, 30, 50 times what the little Heartland Institute does. And they get Coca-Cola to join with them in a marketing campaign that claims that global warming is hurting polar bears. Well, it's absolutely nonsense. Polar bear populations are growing. Okay, they've been growing for the last 20, 30 years. The main reason polar bears were almost driven to extinction was because they were hunting them in Alaska, not because of any change in climate. And finally, there's several distinct populations of polar bears up north, and the polar bear groups that are in areas that are actually warming as opposed to areas that are cooling, the ones that are in the warming areas are growing faster. They're actually flourishing. Even polar bears appreciate some warmer weather. You know, they have very diverse diets, so they're able to adapt. They're able to eat other things instead of just seals. They move, they migrate, so they're not passive victims of climate change up there. They're actually adapting to it and benefiting from the changes that have taken place during the 20th century.
Well, Joe, it's a good thing the polar bears have not been living in the lower 48 this year of 2014 and froze to death, because we've been setting all types of record lows, record high snows. You know, those polar bears better stay in warm Alaska, I think.
I'm from Wisconsin, and so I kind of split my time between Wisconsin and Illinois, and we have had the longest, coldest winter in recorded history since they started the temperature records. I mean, absolutely brutal. I've been telling people we've had 6 months of winter here. The snow that fell in November was still here 2 weeks ago.
Well, Joe, as I said, this year I've named it 2014 and froze to death. But, you know, Joe, Al Gore says the sea levels are going to rise and swallow us all. Is this happening?
Nonsense. Sea level rise has not accelerated. It's been going up. I'm going to forget the number. I think it's about 1 inch a century or 2 inches a century. It's been doing that for centuries. There is no evidence of an increase in the rate of sea level rise. So, you know, it's been rising ever since the last ice age. So as the ice that built up during the ice age melts, yeah, it goes into the ocean basins and you see a little bit of sea level rise. But it's not nearly the crisis that guys like Al Gore are making.
You mean it's not going to flood Manhattan Island?
proofs of that is Al Gore buys oceanfront property. So he obviously doesn't believe his
Hey, let's bring on that sea level rise there, Joe. Hey, Joe, I want to bring Sharon Engel into the conversation, and let me remind our listeners we're speaking with Mr. Joseph Bast. He's the president of the Heartland Institute, talking about a couple studies on global warming. Sharon, I wanted to bring you into the conversation. You got questions for Joe?
Hello, Sharon.
Certainly. Hello, Joe. Thanks so much for being on our show today. We started out the program with you saying that there are fundamental differences between these two reports, and fundamental differences between the scientists that have done these two reports. Could you go into that just a little bit? Because, of course, when we start talking real science, they want to go right to the credibility of those who are reporting this. So can you talk about the credibility of both groups and why we should believe one group over the other?
Absolutely. We list all the scientists who participate in the non-governmental international panel reports. So they're listed on the last couple of pages of the summaries for policymakers, and they're listed in the first appendix of each volume with their bios, with their current affiliations. These guys are respected scientists. They cover a wide range of topics. Many of them are professors emeritus, which means that they're no longer being forced to try to raise money for their departments or publish or perish. They don't need to get their stuff into peer-reviewed journals anymore. So many of them have published hundreds of times in the peer-reviewed literature. So this is not a group of just retired scientists or guys on the fringe. We think they represent the mainstream of the science community, at least the mainstream that doesn't depend on government grants to support their research projects. The IPCC, the United Nations, is very different. So it's largely government scientists selected by government officials conducting research, I think, with an agenda. The whole purpose of the IPCC, as set out in its founding documents, was to find a human impact on climate. And so of course, it goes in looking for any possible piece of evidence to support that hypothesis. Well, if you know anything about science, that is not how science is supposed to be done. You're not supposed to try to find evidence to support a hypothesis. You're supposed to test hypothesis. The greatest success for a scientist is to find a hole in a hypothesis and disprove it so that scientists can then pose another hypothesis that brings them closer to the truth. So the IPCC's whole paradigm, I think, is wrong, and it's not scientific, whereas the NIPSI group, the non-governmental group, I think is very much true to what scientists should be trying to achieve.
But isn't it true that some people might scoff and say, well, those guys are really just retired, they're not really working in the field anymore, and so they don't have access to state-of-the-art science, things are changing, these guys are old school. What do you say to that?
Many of them are still working. So while some of them are retired and emeritus, and I hope I didn't emphasize them too much, Craig Idso, who is the principal author of the latest volume, I think he's 47 years old, something like that. I mean, he's a young guy. And many of these guys are currently academics and have current academic affiliations. Even the older guys are still publishing. So, a guy like Fred Singer, Fred is the dean of global warming skeptics. He's an astrophysicist. He was a professor of environmental science at the University of Virginia for many years, and he retired. In the last 10 years, 15 years, he's appeared 10, 15 times in peer-reviewed academic journals. So, and you can't be a slouch and you can't be behind the curve and still be publishing in the peer-reviewed literature. So I would compare the qualifications of our authors against the qualifications of anybody involved with the IPCC any day.
Hey, Joe, we've got to wrap up. We're at the end of our time, but Mr. Joseph Bast, president of the Heartland Institute, I want to thank you for joining us. And, Joe, where can our listeners go to read those 1,000-page reports?
Yep, they are available at two different websites. The first one is climatechangereconsidered.org, Climate Change Reconsidered, all one word, .org, or they can go to nipsireport.org. That's NIPCC report.org. Once again, all one word.
And a website for the Heartland Institute?
I'm sorry?
A website for the Heartland Institute?
Yes, heartland.org, heartland.org. And indeed, you can buy the books or pull them down for free. The entire books are available chapter by chapter, as well as just the executive summary for free on any of those websites.
Wow, that's fantastic. Mr. Joseph Bass, president of the Heartland Institute. Hey, Joe, I hope you'll come back. I really do.
I always enjoy being on your show, so thanks very much for having me on again.
Take care, God bless, and happy Easter.
All right.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
Hello, I'm Reverend Carl Kelly, and I head up the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Indiana. President Obama's attacks on the Constitution continues to be aided and abetted by one of his trusted allies in Congress, ultra-liberal Democrat Andre Carson of Indianapolis, nationally known for his infamous racial rants against the Tea Party. I want to tell you about J.D. Manier. J.D. will be a representative for the people of the 7th District. J.D. Manier is a pro-growth Reagan conservative and is co-host of the conservative Commandos Radio show. He is asking you to join his army of supporters in order to defeat Carson and go to Washington to demand special prosecutors for Benghazi, the IRS, and other scandals. JD is interested in what's good for the people of the 7th District, not Nancy Pelosi. He will promote strong economic growth and jobs by getting the government off the backs of the people, voting for tax cuts and slashing regulations, Help elect a pro-life defender of freedom who will strongly support Israel, vote to cut wasteful spending, and battle to repeal Obama's socialist agenda. Log on to MinierForCongress.com and donate today. That's MINIEAR for Congress.com. Paid for and authorized by the J.D. Minier for Congress Committee.
I'm J.D. Minier, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, Indiana District 7, and I approve of this message.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Rick Trader, coming to you from WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, please log on to patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m., when we end our live broadcast, if you'd like to hear a replay of yesterday's show, place for that is cprworldwidemedia.com. And you could hear a rebroadcast of today's show on Monday afternoon at vigilantlibertyradio.us. And don't forget, you can now hear the Conservative Commandos radio show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Don't forget our websites, conservativecommandosradioshow.com and ccrshow.com. And Sharon Engel, with that, we do have our next guest. Please make the introduction.
It's my pleasure to introduce a Nevadan to you, Jeffrey Lawrence, who's the Deputy Director of the Policy for Nevada Policy Research Institute. Jeff is a frequent commentator on public policy in print, radio, and television news in Nevada, and his works appear regularly in publications around the state and the nation. He's noted for having developed comprehensive proposals for reform of the state revenue structure, budgeting methods, and spending habits. Prior to joining MPRI, Jeff spent 2 years as a research assistant at the John Locke Foundation in North Carolina, where he focused on energy policy. Jeff, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Hey, thanks so much, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure for us to have you, Jeff. And, of course, we were reading your article, Federal Lands Belong Under State Control. You wrote this for the Elko Daily Press, but you are there with the MPRI, and you're looking very closely at what's going on right now, as all of us in Nevada are, with the Clive Bundy case and what's going on there. Now, I want to talk to you just a little bit about this idea of the public lands and why they're under federal control and not state control, and what the difference is. Government's government. So let's just talk a little bit about that history briefly, and then why would we want one government versus another government? How come we can't have them in private control?
Well, that's certainly a really good question. You know, when Clive and Bundy challenged the BLM based on their ownership of the land in federal court, the federal judge said that it was indeed federal land, and the federal government had owned it since 1848, when that land was, taken at the end of the Mexican-American War. Now, technically, that is true, but that's not typically how land has been handled once it came into the Union. And actually, in Clive and Bundy's case, it's really interesting because in Clark County, that land, Clark County was originally part of the Arizona Territory, and the Utah Territory, and then the Nevada Territory when it was formed in 1861. Now, when Nevada became a state in 1864, the federal government in the Enabling Act required that the state stake all, or that they put in the state constitution a disclaimer of interest in all public lands, which effectively locked up somewhere around 90% of the state under federal control, leaving only about 10% of the people. Now, at the time, there were only about 7,500 people in Nevada, so that wasn't that big of a deal because there were still, several million acres available for private development. Whereas the state has grown over the past 150 years, clearly that's, the needs of the population have changed dramatically, but the amount of available land has not really increased. In other states, earlier in the nation's history, this was a typical way that the federal government would set up a new state. In Nebraska, for instance, which also got its statehood at about the same time as Nevada, almost all the land originally was federal, but they required the state to disclaim their interest in the land only so the feds could clear title and then auction it off to private bidders on a free basis. There would be no dispute about who actually held the titles. Now, in the older states, that always happened, but when the by the time they got to the western states, Congress started to basically renege on that deal, whereas states up to about Nebraska is kind of the dividing line. New states up until that point had always been able to buy back the land from the federal government once statehood was achieved, and that land typically went into private hands. So I think there's clearly a case that Nevada's been shortchanged, along with several other western states, in regard to being able to get access to their own land. And within constitutional law and the legal history, there is a case to be made that Nevada and other western states have lost their equal footing rights because new states are supposed to come into the union on an equal footing with the older states. And that's really the basis of any legal challenge that could be formed against the BLM in this case.
Now, we're talking about the BLM, but isn't it true that Nevada is like 84 to 87% publicly owned, and it's by different agencies. It's not just the BLM. Talk about how where that land is. Almost 50% of it is with the Department of Energy or the Department of Defense and a test site there in the middle of the state. So talk about that. Who are these entities that have interest in the public lands in Nevada?
Well, let's see if I can remember off the top of my head. I think there are about 7 or 8 agencies that have sizable holdings in Nevada. That includes, as you mentioned, Department of Defense, Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Wildlife has a bunch of land here, Bureau of Indian Affairs. So there are a number, but the BLM is the largest single holder of land. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky because some lands do have, serve a strategic purpose for the nation, such as, lands that are used for defense. Others, it's not clear that they're being used for any real purpose, which is generally the lands held by the BLM and, to some extent, Fish and Wildlife. When Western states have tried to get their lands back, Utah in the last few years has really been at the forefront and demanding a transfer of federal lands back to state control. What they've asked for is primarily land held by the BLM, with some recognition that national lands held with national parks or by the Department of Defense would be left in federal hands. And actually, I think that if you wanted to be more aggressive than Utah and demand those lands back, you would have a really hard time trying to make that case in Congress.
And there is a congressman right now that is his top agenda item, isn't it? Do you recall his name?
Are you talking about, in Utah, several people have been involved in this. I don't know if you're talking about Mike Lee or someone else.
Well, I met a congressman in Arizona who was pushing this forward, and all of his data really related to states that have less than 50% of their lands publicly owned, which is most of the western states. Actually, Nevada's the one that has the largest percentage and well over 50%. So many of the things that apply in the other western states don't pencil out, I guess, in Nevada. Have you found that to be true in your research?
Well, yeah. I mean, Nevada clearly is we're more encumbered by federal land ownership than any other state. However, all the western states have sizable chunks. Even California, people don't generally think about California as being mostly federal owned, but more than half the state is federal owned, actually, which may contribute to the rapidly escalating real estate prices out on the coast and frankly in the southern Nevada region as well, because here in southern Nevada we're encircled by federal land ownership, and the Las Vegas area cannot expand out any further than it already is. So you have increasing population density and real estate prices that rise rapidly over the course of just a few years. So yeah, I think Nevada is unique in that respect because there are so many constraints, particularly in Clark County, that people start bumping up against those barriers where you go out as far as you can on the land that's available for private development, and then you can't go any further. And it's an artificial constraint to growth that really hampers the Silver State, but it does affect other states as well.
Okay, we've got to go to a break now. Jeff, can you stay through the break with us?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great, because when we come back from the break, we're going to talk more with Jeffrey Lawrence, who's with the Nevada Policy Research Institute, and we're going to get into this area of Cliven Bundy and his fight for the land, and as well as what does Harry Reid have to do with all of that? Does he? Or is it all rumor? What really is going on in Nevada behind the scenes, rather than is it just an extension of the Sagebrush Rebellion? So we'll be right back after this break with our guest, Jeff Lawrence from Nevada Policy Research Institute.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I... Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
You are listening to Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Rick Traer and Sharon Engel. We are coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with our new Internet broadcast partners, BPR, WorldwideMedia.com, RideOrg, and Vigilant Liberty Radio US. Now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos radio show at any time during the day by calling 832-999-1199 or by using the Internet to get a live link with us. We are talking with Jeffrey Lawrence, who's policy analyst for the Nevada Policy Research Institute. We've been talking about federal lands policy. Should it be in the federal hands? Should it be in the state hands? Or should it be in private hands? And, of course, this is very timely because of the Cliven Bundy story, which we ended before the segment, in the last segment, kind of talking about urban sprawl and how it, at one time, Cliven Bundy's allotment with the BLM was really of no interest to anyone except Cliven Bundy. And now, because of urban sprawl, because of Las Vegas getting bigger and people wanting more and more land to do more and more different things with, Cliven Bundy's use has kind of gone to the bottom of the pile of priorities, if you will. Speaking of which, we have a senator that seems to have land as one of his priorities. Jeff, do you have any comments? There's a lot of rumor floating around that Harry Reid has a vested interest in Cliven Bundy's allotment.
Well, I think that may be partly true, but it is there are a couple layers of maybe a little bit of separation, and that's because Harry Reid has been very adamant in lobbying on behalf of ENN Energy, which is a solar energy company that's based in China. A couple of years ago, it kind of made some headlines when he helped his son Rory push through the Clark County Commission a new land contract in which ENN Energy would lease several acres from Clark County in order to build this solar power plant that would, of course, also be eligible for federal subsidies. But now that they have agreed to the lease and ENN is ready to break ground, this land that they want to build on is a little bit north of Nellis Air Force Base, just outside of the Las Vegas Valley. So it's still, 60 or 70 miles away from Cliven Bundy's ranch. The reason why this involves Cliven Bundy is because the land, or the site for this solar power plant, is also on desert tortoise habitat. Now, desert tortoise is listed as an endangered species, and Cliven Bundy's range is also identified as desert tortoise habitat. So what they want to do is use Cliven Bundy's ranch, or the area where his cattle are grazing, supposedly illegally. They want to use that as a mitigation area. So they're going to round up all the tortoises from the solar power facility and transplant them over to where Cliven Bundy's cattle are. So it's not necessarily directly that Harry Reid has something out for Cliven Bundy on a personal level, but he is involved in this Chinese solar power manufacturer, and they want to get this site off the ground. It'll be the largest solar power plant in the United States if it's successful. So that's kind of the story behind that, and it is kind of if you're Cliven Bundy, you've got to be looking at all these really powerful two-step figures coming after you, and frankly, you got to be a little bit scared because he just does not muster the type of power that these folks do.
Well, now this kind of smacks of another land deal. I'm thinking of the one that Harry Reid brokered for Coyote Springs for Harvey Whittemore. Remember, there was an energy corridor, I believe, going right through Coyote Springs, and he was able to get Harry to change a wilderness designation so that corridor could be moved on the other side of the highway and not through his land. So to me, this moving tortoises, moving power lines, this is really right up Harry Reid's alley to be moving stuff around in order to get a use that he'd like to have. Does that ring a bell with you? I'm also thinking of the train to nowhere, Victorville, that he brokered for the road. How do those things line up, or do they? Or is there no correlation and Harry Reid is completely innocent?
No, I think they do. In fact, I think Kerry has long used federal land control in Nevada as his power base because it allows him, because in order to do anything in Nevada, basically you have to get permission from one federal agency or another, all of which he kind of holds under his thumb. So he uses that control to dispense patronage and buy favors all across Nevada, and that's kind of how he got to where he is. A lot of people, listen to the complaints from Nevadans about being so heavily encumbered by federal land, and look at the fact that we have a Senate Majority Leader from Nevada, and wonder, how we can't get that fixed. Well, the reason why is because Harry Reid likes things the way they are. That's how he rose to where he is.
And of course, we're encumbered by other things as well. We kind of turn a blind eye to the regulation that is really hurting us financially. If we were to take these lands over as state lands, what do we do about wild horses and burros? Now the federal government is helping us round up and house these and ship them off to adoption centers. But what happens when the state takes over just that, or wildfire, or antiquities, or rare and endangered species? It just seems like there's a ton of regulation and law that would really bring a financial burden to the state. What do you say about that, Jeff Lawrence? Is there no financial burden, or can we get out from under it if we take the state takes the land on?
No, I think the key virtue to transferring ownership to the state is that the state can then auction that land off to private owners or developers and receive not only an upfront cash payment that allows them to help fund the general budget and manage whatever public lands do remain in state control, but then those lands also enter the property tax roll. So you have an ongoing revenue boost as a result of privatizing those lands. And frankly, you could keep 50% of Nevada in public ownership and sell off several million acres still and come out well ahead. So I don't think that's really a legitimate concern, because there is a lot of money to be made on both the private side and the public side from auctioning off public lands.
And so we're going to have to leave it there, Jeff Lawrence, with the Nevada Policy Research Institute. Do you have a website, someplace where we can follow you if we'd like to learn more about public lands and the interests of actually this nation in Nevada?
We do. Thank you, Sharon. It's npri.org, stands for Nevada Policy Research Institute.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for being on our show today. We really appreciate you taking part with the Conservative Commandos radio show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, and we're coming up against the end of our show, and I wanted to wish all of you a very happy and blessed Easter out there, especially our two favorite listeners, that be Mary Brockman and Patricia Treger. Want to thank all our listeners, and by the way, don't forget that we do have many methods that you could listen to rebroadcast of the Conservative Commandos radio show, in addition to coming to you from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, from WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. But you could also hear rebroadcast at CPR, worldwidemedia.com, patriotsride.org, vigilantlibertyradio.us, and you can also hear our show or listen to a rebroadcast of our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Sharon Angle, I want to thank you for sitting in as my co-host. Always great to work with you, Sharon.
Thanks so much, Rick. Happy Easter to you.
Same to you and to your family. And don't forget, I'm going to be dyeing up a whole bunch of Easter eggs since you're not doing them, so I'll have to go out and buy a couple more dozen just for you, Sharon. Do them.
I thought you'd be buying Peeps. Come on.
I love everything about Easter, the traditional religious part of it, and also the fun part of it, too. And I think we all should. I want to thank Mr. John Forsythe Jr. for working the boards, but for right now, we got to run, we got to go. Take care, God bless, happy Easter, and we'll see you next week on the radio.
Thank you for listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Huge thanks to our co-hosts, contributors, patrons, callers, and our friends at WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460, where we broadcast live every Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern and 2 to 4 p.m. Central. Look for us on the internet at www.ccrshow.com. Until next time, we are the Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
This is 1360 AM. WNJC, Washington Township, Philadelphia. Philadelphia's Renaissance radio station. Brought to you from Forsyth Broadcasting. Or listen to us at WNJCradio.com.